All right, welcome into the CFB season show. I'm Season, and I'm joined with a recurring guest. Man, I had him earlier in the spring. I think maybe around like March or February. I can't remember when I had you on, but I had you on
Yeah,
early in the spring, and I'm glad to have you back, man. What up, Gyrish? Right, Gyrish?
Gyrish talk. Yeah, it's great to be back. I enjoyed being on your show. I think it's like around March, something like that. But yeah, I had a great time being on your show last time. So thrilled to be back. We were talking about this before we started recording, but just really pumped that the season is almost here finally. I feel like
Mhm.
that's just come Saturday. I just know what I'm doing all day. Just gonna be camped out in front of that TV, watching game after game. Just does not get much better than that.
And we got some big ones, man. We got Texas, Ohio State to start in the 11
Yeah.
a.m. Then the big Notre Dame, Miami. That's the nighttime game?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's actually I think it's prime time. Yeah, let me see. Yeah, it's prime time. So I'm looking at the schedule right now. It says it's in Pacific time, it says 4:30, so that'll be 7:30 Eastern time. So yeah, prime time game on ABC.
We got a few big ones, man, in the week one. I always like teams who are not scared to play primetime opponents or like premier opponents week one out the gate.
Yeah.
It's you know we don't get the privilege of a tune-up game like how most 90% of teams across the country do. We don't get the privilege of a tune-up. We got to be ready to go out the gate week one. That's one thing that I have a lot of respect for coaches and programs who do that.
Yeah, Notre Dame historically it wasn't always I would say if not the first week of the year, a lot of times, like this is when we regularly played Michigan. Michigan would usually be one of the first games that we would play. Usually, like the first, like when I was a student, there it was like one of the first games, like the first or second week we would play. And yeah, I mean, you really don't get much of a tune-up. And the winner of that game, it generally kind of uh, told you how the season was going to go. If Notre Dame won that game, then that generally meant that they were going to have a good season. If Michigan won, then it was kind of the opposite of that. So yeah, I think it's when you have that, it can be a pretty telling barometer for sure. And I think last year for Notre Dame, um, yeah, I mean, I think like last year we had a big game to some big games to start the year, and I think that pretty much told us exactly where we were going to be. Although we obviously had that hiccup against NIU, but yeah, I think the Texas A&M game that was kind of like I think that kind of gave us a vision of what the team was going to eventually become. We like I said, we stumbled a little bit early, but then by the end of the year, like what that Texas A&M game told us, that's kind of largely what ended up proving out over the course of the season.
I tell you what, man, I'm real high on the Irish, especially coming off a national championship appearance. I really love Marcus Freeman, very likable coach, very strong
Yeah.
defensive mind, and he got a great staff around him, and he got elite talent at almost every position group. You could probably every position group. You got elite talent. You got some good depth too. And what we're going to do with this show is we're going to do this a Notre Dame preview. I'm glad you could come on and kind of give us your thoughts on everything and provide some great analysis for us. So what we're going to do is, we could jump maybe in offense first. Give us obviously the main thing that everyone wants to know is the quarterback battle going on between Minchie and CJ Carr. The way I look at it is that I think I'll see how you think about it after I tell you this. I think Minchie probably fits Denbrock's system a little bit better because of what he could do on the ground with his legs. But I think CJ Carr might be more of the accurate, more pocket passer. And I think with the accurate pocket passer, the more arm talent, I think you could do more with your receivers. But in that offense, with Denbrock and I think he could scheme up a great scheme for Minchie. And just curious, man, give us the thoughts on the
Yeah.
QB battle and who
Yeah.
you win and who you hire on and what's the expectations outlook.
Yeah. I think you hit the key points of it. So it's not a situation where there's a total dual threat quarterback and then a pure pocket passer. Like both of these guys have elements of both. But I think what you said is right. So Minchie is the more mobile of the two. If the play breaks down, he can get a little bit more creative. But in terms of arm talent, he does have solid arm talent. Like he was a well recruited guy, top 150. I think that's around where he was at. He got lost a little bit in the shuffle. Didn't get as much hoopla because Notre Dame was actually recruiting another big time quarterback prospect at the time, Dante Moore, 5-star. Looked like he was going to come to Notre Dame and did not happen. So we ended up going with our backup, which is Minchie, which is a solid backup. Still a highly touted guy. So I think that's why he gets lost in the shuffle. But by all counts, he's someone who's continued to stick around in this competition, has definitely turned some heads. I think a lot of people expected Carr to already have this job locked down. Now, that's a good segue to Carr. So Carr, his profile is, as you mentioned, more accurate, better arm talent, not immobile. He has some mobility. You still have to respect his ability to run, but he's certainly not a burner, and he's not quite as creative as someone like Minchie would be, but more of a top 50 talent. So, and depending on when you were following his recruiting, at one point he was a 5-star, and then actually since he got to campus, he's looked really good in 2 spring games. One when he was basically someone who should have still been in high school, and then this most recent one. It's just some very impressive throws. Unfortunately, he was hurt for most of last season, so he couldn't really, supercharge his development. So, but I think just because of Carr's recruiting profile, because he's looked pretty impressive at times in some of these high caliber glorified exhibitions. I think, and then even just the vibe from reporters on the beat, they've kind of tended to, I would say, lean more towards Carr. It's certainly been the impression I've gotten. But interestingly, this camp, what I've been reading is it's very much been more of a 50-50 battle. So a lot of those beat reporters who are really close to the team, they've kind of been backing off a little bit and insisting that it's kind of anyone's job up for grabs. And then you made another good point, Denbrock. Denbrock's system certainly thrives much more effectively when you have a mobile quarterback. So, and like we're not, like I mentioned before, we're not choosing between mobile and immobile, but Minchie certainly is more mobile. So there's a bit more that you could do with that. So I would say, if gun to my head, if I had to pick, I would probably guess Carr still comes out on top, but it's I would say that's a bet that I would try to avoid making because it feels like it could kind of go either way. But yeah, clearly
close. Is that close? So y'all had some scrimmages yet in fall camp?
So there was like access is a bit limited. The media had access to the first practice, and so I think this kind of leads to another point I'm going to make is when you have a first time QB starting, it can be, you don't really know what you're going to get. It's very uncertain. So in that practice, there were 4 interceptions between those 2 guys, 3 of them from Carr, one from Minchie. I mean, it's just the first practice, so you don't want to overreact to it. But I do think that's, it's a reminder that when you have a first time QB that you're breaking in like that, there probably are, like, even if they end up becoming a really good QB by the end of the year, we're probably going to have some bumps, and you just have to kind of hope that the rest of the team is able to kind of help them get through it. So even if one of these guys ends up being like the next great Notre Dame quarterback, odds are there are going to be some bumps. And so that would be my expectation. I think the question is kind of more, how much do they develop over the course of the year, and how big are those bumps? Are they enough to where it like really dings us in our first 2 games of the season, which are on paper look like our toughest games, against Texas A&M or against Miami and Texas A&M. So we'll see. That's really one of the big questions kind of hanging out there.
So what you been hearing, man? Like besides just those stats from those reports, kind of give us, man, who you think is like who got the lead? It's probably not a lead for anyone, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, most of them seem to, I would say, like, it's kind of what I said. Most of the reporters, they're insisting it's 50-50, but then like if you follow up, like I've seen people like on like boards and stuff like that, they'll be like, okay, but like if you had to guess, who'd you say? And most of them have been leaning Carr, and I would say that's kind of where my head's at too. I think that's probably where we get to. But look, if Minchie ends up winning it, I mean, I don't know, maybe that just tells you that's how good he is, because Carr is the one that they seemed all in on. So if Minchie wins, that might tell you that he must have really put on an impressive performance in camp to be able to just win that job outright. So yeah, it's a lot. I mean, it's a fun part. We're kind of reading the tea leaves, and like I mentioned, the team is kind of limiting media access a bit. So it's not like, they're not letting, like, they gave access to like 1 full practice, but aside from that, it's kind of been filtered information coming from staff, and
they're playing it smart.
Like, what's that?
The staff's playing it smart, bro. They don't want the media
exactly
pushing out information like that, especially on a really intense QB battle that's going to go all the way into the season potentially, man. You hope, as a Notre Dame fan, you hope that out the gate you don't have no struggles on offense, because that you could be pumped in a situation where you got 3 points going into halftime and the whole fan base is already at your net calling for a QB change. So you got to hope that out the gate that they make the right decision. You don't want no controversy, I would say. And another factor that I always looked at, and all what coaches like to say, is that usually the team involves around a guy. here, Charlotte, you're gonna see which guy the team's gonna welcome and embrace. I think that's gonna be probably the final scroll who wins the battle.
Yeah, yeah, I agree, and that's like a point that's at least from my standpoint a relative unknown. So Riley Leonard last year fit in extremely well, great leader. These two guys, they just haven't been in the spotlight much yet. So I haven't heard anything negative about them. But in terms of like those leadership qualities, and are they going to be like a rah guy who can get the team fired up?
Yep.
Yeah, I would say that remains to be seen at this point.
Yeah, I guess my final thoughts on the QB battle is I'm an arm talent QB pocket passer bias guy. I lean towards CJ Carr here because I think you could do more with the receivers. You got some stud receivers, but
Yeah.
however, you got to go with the guy who's going to limit the turnovers the most and give you the best chance to victory as well. But
Yep.
we'll see how it all shakes up. Man, let's jump into the running backs next. Obviously, you got two of the best backs, one of the best backfields in the country with Jadarian Price and Jordan Love. And some reports came out that Love maybe sustained a little injury. Is that anything to be aware of, or?
I think he should be fine. He got banged up a little bit last year too. I think, look, there's always that element where the staff could be talking it down, but yeah, Love is someone he's had little nagging injuries here or there. So my guess is they play pretty safe with him. But assuming he's healthy, like Love is, in my opinion, the best running back in the country. And it's been a while since Notre Dame's had someone like this. Like we've had exceptional offensive lines and good running backs who have been able to take advantage of the running lanes that the offensive line opens up. But we haven't really had the type of running back that you would have that Nick Saban had at Alabama, or that you'd see at LSU. We haven't really had many of those guys, and this is the first time in a while that we've had someone like that. And you look at draft boards, it seems like most draft pundits have him as a first round pick. The top running back in the draft, assuming that he goes, which I would be very surprised if he doesn't. And it's just he has a very interesting profile. He's very explosive. He's not massive, but like he's a very powerful running back. And he also, in terms of the passing game, for someone like that, more effective than you would expect. Softer hands, able to get open at times. I think last year he averaged nearly 7 yards per carry, had 17 touchdowns, just absolutely memorable plays, especially down the stretch in the college football playoff. He had that long run against Indiana that really set the tone, that long touchdown run. I think my favorite play of the year was that Penn State, it was like a 2 or 3 yard run where he broke like 3 tackles and then kind of like jumped at the very end to get in there. Just very relentless. And I think one area to watch with him is development in the passing game. I think that's an area where he can really start to make even more of an impact. So I think Jeremiah Love, he's the most talented player on the team, one of the most talented players in the entire country. A question I keep getting is he a Heisman contender? And for me, I think it's really tough for a running back to win the Heisman. I think being a finalist is possible. It's just one other element with Love is that we do try to limit his carries a bit. So I think he had like around 160 carries last year. If you look at running backs who have been finalists for the Heisman in the last like 15 years, typically they've had about double that amount. So look, I think it's a good thing. I think it should help keep him fresh, assuming we're able to have like a stretch run in the playoff or something like that. Also limits his risk of injury. And part of the reason they're able to do that is just because our number 2 back, Jadarian Price, is also a great running back, would be the top running back at most other schools in the country. He was averaging over 6 yards a carry too. So just a loaded running back room. And then on top of that, we have strong options behind that. Anais Williams, our number 3 running back. He's someone who looks poised to carry that tradition down the line. So yeah, I think definitely since I've been a fan, this is by far the most loaded running back room Notre Dame has had. I think the best running back room in the country. Penn State has a strong case as well, but I think that they're probably number 2.
Yeah, I had put up a graphic not too long ago, and I had Notre Dame, Penn State. I think I had A&M guys up in there too.
Yeah.
Who had the best backfield in the country. And a lot of people were leaning Penn State actually, but you can make an argument with Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love for sure, bro. Jeremiah Love's my number 1 back overall, but I do like Jadarian Price as well.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize you said, he didn't get that much volume. You're right. You know, I thought he had way more volume than what he actually had last season. Jeremiah Love only
Yeah,
160, only 163 carries. So you're right. They are split in the backfield, and they're going to be healthier. Hopefully, healthier going into the playoff stretch. Doing so.
yeah.
And
I think he'll probably. I would guess his carries increase this season, assuming he stays healthy. I don't think it'll be. I don't think it'll be over 300 though. But if he was like 160, maybe it jumps up to 200 because that was a point of. I mean, I would say it was like a point of criticism at times. Like there were a lot of third down scenarios where Jeremiah Love wasn't in, and we'd put in that number 3 back, Anais Williams, because he's our best pass blocker as a running back. So yeah, I mentioned areas to improve. That's another area Jeremiah Love could improve, and I imagine he will improve. So I think the hope is that we will see him. He will be sitting out fewer of these third down situations this season.
all right, let's jump into the wide receiver room. Picked up Malachi Fields, one of the best receiver pickups in free agency. Stack that with Great House. What you hearing from the wide receiver 3 right now?
Yeah, so I think for me, the top 3 are, I mean, you mentioned 2 of them. So Malachi Fields, Great House, and then Jordan Faison. Those are the top 3 wide receivers for me at Notre Dame. So Malachi Fields, yeah, great pickup. Not someone I think who's going to be like a bona fide superstar wide receiver, but someone who should be a very good player. He had over 800 yards at Virginia. Was the number 1 option there. In an offense that I would say really struggled at quarterback. So he certainly wasn't in an offense that was maybe built to optimize his skill set. Big bodied guy, someone who I think should be effective with 50-50 balls and, hopefully can help in some third down scenarios. You mentioned Great House. Really, I would say last year the coaching staff was talking when they were talking up who could potentially become our top receiver, who could emerge. Great House was the one that Denbrack would always mention. He'd say, I think Great House has a chance to really emerge. And we finally saw that at the end of the year against Penn State and Ohio State, 2 of the best defenses in the entire country. And then, Faison, I think Faison has had some incredible flashes. He's had some really big games at times. I think he's, it's funny. He was pretty under-recruited. And then when I watched him play, very athletic, very quick, great lacrosse player too. After just watching him enough, I was like, how the heck was this guy so under-recruited? I think a real diamond in the rough for Notre Dame, but someone I would expect with another year of development to have further improvement. So interestingly, Notre Dame at wide receiver the last couple of years have been, I would say not like 2 years ago, our wide receiver room was pretty bad, honestly. And then last year, I would say it was average perhaps until the end of the year when some of our receivers started stepping up and then they were a little above average. So we had an improvement last year. And then I think this year we have another improvement. I think this wide receiver group is officially a good wide receiver group.
Okay.
And and I think there's a lot of upside there. And then after those 3 guys, it's maybe someone like Will Pauling, who's a transfer from Wisconsin. Didn't play as great last year, but the year before that, he had a good season. And then beyond that, maybe it's a younger guy. We have Cam Williams, a highly touted recruit, but he's kind of struggled to break through. So a bit uncertain. I would say like after those guys, it gets a bit more uncertain about who's going to be winning playing time at receiver.
Man, the passing game really held y'all back last season, in my opinion. And you made it all the way to the national championship, and your top 2 receiving production was only 42 receptions, and 43 receptions were your 2 leading guys.
Yeah.
And, freaking Riley Leonard had over 400 pass attempts, only 21 touchdowns. And like I said, your leading guy only had 43 catches with over 400 attempts. I think that's one thing you have to get better at, especially when you get to a national championship. You got to be able to throw the ball. And, that's kind of why they lost to Ohio State, couldn't really pass. And I think I'm looking at the receivers, I think Malachi Fields has the best chance to be the wide receiver 1 in this offense on the outside, just because of his, his length and his height, and I feel like he's more of a weapon and he could go up and grab it. I think Greathouse got a lot of yak ability to his game, yards after catch, get him the ball in space. I would throw Greathouse in the slot and on the outside in this offense. I would move him around. That's why I'm kind of leaning Carr a little bit to lead the offense. But like you said, Minchie does got some arm talent as well. So I think if y'all could get that receiver room jumping, you think we could get like an 80 reception guy at Notre Dame?
Well, I've been praying for that the last couple of years. We'll see. I
So,
mean, I think we have more of a chance this year, but uh, yeah, I mean, you make some great points. Like I would say, yeah, passing explosiveness, that was definitely our weakness last year. We had run explosiveness. We were
yeah,
extremely explosive in the run, um, but yeah, that's really what held us back. And Riley Leonard, I would say he played his best ball down the stretch. He actually had. I remember I was talking to my co-host about it, and we were like, oh yeah, Riley Leonard had a really good game in the national championship, like from a pass, one of his best games as a passer. But then I looked it up and he had like 250 yards. I'm like, if we want to make the next step, uh, we need to be talking about a quarterback who had a great game and he had like 350 yards, right, and like 4 touchdowns. So it was just kind of, it's like relative to the beginning of the year, there's an improvement, but like nothing close to what we'd see from like a Joe Burrow offense or Baker Mayfield or those guys. Not even close. So yeah, I think I think it should be better. The passing game should be better this year. I think one other element that I'm going to add in here is, there's some hope that if Raridan, our tight end, it was a highly touted tight end, has struggled with injuries throughout his entire career, but when healthy, the staff has been really high on him. Seems like he's fully healthy and seems like someone who might have a lot of upside at tight end. So obviously an unknown because he's a guy who has a lot of injuries, but they actually brought him. Notre Dame, since they're not a part of conference media days. What they do is they tend to go to New York and they'll meet with like ESPN and all these different media outlets, and they bring a bunch of players with them. And the players they bring, it's like Jeremiah Love, and it's players that everyone's heard of, like big time players who are expected to be stars. And they brought Raridan, to the media days. So to me, that was, if you're reading tea leaves, to me, that was like, okay, the staff might know something that we don't know. So I would say that's another guy to keep an eye on in the passing game.
does Denbrock, does he run any two back in his offense? Does he ever bring out Love and Price?
Not as much as the fans would like. I think we did it a little bit. I wouldn't
Man,
expect to see it a ton.
I'm
Yeah, I
looking at
mean, look, yeah, if there were a time to do it, this would be the time to do it for sure.
I'm looking at this depth chart, bro. You got Malachi Fields, Great House on the outside. You got Love and Price in the backfield. You won't be able to stack the box, man. If the QB play upgrades, you won't be able to stack the box, bro. This could be a lethal offense, man. Especially it all comes down to QB play in my eyes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's interesting. I think there's a lot of volatility both ways. So I think like what's certain is our offensive line should be really good. Yeah, we had an injury to one, and then our running backs are going to be great. So I think it's like our run game is going to be really, really tough. I think we have upgrades at receiver, maybe even tight end. And so if the quarterback clicks, to me, like it has the potential for a top 3 offense. But if the quarterback doesn't click, I think our run game should be effective enough to where we're still like kind of like a top 15, top 20-ish offense. But that's a pretty big gap. You have a quarterback that clicks and you have a top 3 offense. Like that's when you're getting into like national title contender territory.
Absolutely, I completely agree with that. Now, you mentioned the O-line going to be solid. I call Notre Dame O-line U. And who's the best players who we need to keep eye out? Who's been standing out?
Yeah, so it's interesting. We had some pretty notable guys in the offensive line room in the stretch to the championship last year who played a lot of minutes for us, and they transferred, so it got a lot of attention. So it's Pat Coogan, Rocco Spindler. Those 2 guys in particular, they played a lot of meaningful ball for us down the stretch. Graded out really well. They actually transferred, but it's interesting because a key reason that they were playing in that stretch was because we had injuries. So I've been maintaining that, and the coaching staff has been pretty consistent, that our top 5 in the offensive line room have been our top 5 the entire time. And some of these other guys who got a lot of playing time, they did really well when they got the playing time, but they were never the top 5. They were, we had 3. I mentioned Coogan and Spindler. There's another guy, Pendleton. Those guys were 6 through 8. So we lost a lot of depth, but our frontline starters, those have always been the same guys. And so it's Wagner and Knapp at offensive tackle. We had Jagasaw at guard, but he got hurt. Shrouth at other guard, and then Craig at center. Now with Jagasaw hurt, that's where like losing that depth hurts a little bit. I've been hearing that it looks like looks like Apsher, who was a highly touted offensive line recruit, pretty big guy. Looks like he might slot into that spot. Other guys to keep an eye on are Gerby Lambert or maybe even Will Black. Will Black was like a near 5-star recruits, just monster, like 6'7" and like 315 pounds or something like that. And he's like a true freshman. So I would expect it to be Apsher who fills in. But if they decide to move some people around, that's where you could see some of those other guys I mentioned work in. But it's right now you have a combination of guys who got some experience, finally got some experience last year because there was an inexperienced group last year, and guys with a really high recruiting profile. So you have the combination of on paper, which should be really good talent. You have some experience, and then you have on top of that a running back room that should make that offensive line group look as good as possible. The one area they need to improve a little bit more is pass protection. I think Riley Leonard last year masked some of the deficiencies in our offensive line. Like Riley Leonard was about as good as it got in college football in terms of avoiding sacks. So if you had someone who was a little less mobile, I think are like the sacks numbers against us would have been a lot higher. So that's the one area they have to improve a bit, but I fully expect them to. And I think my opinion is if they don't win the Joe Moore, I'm not going to predict that they win the Joe Moore Award, but I fully expect them to be a finalist. And then a lot of these guys will be back the year after that. So this is looking like an offensive line group to get the kid. If they're scary this year, they could be really scary next year. And Jagasaw should be back by the middle of the year. And I would say the staff seems to be of the opinion that he's probably our best offensive lineman, the one with the highest ceiling for sure.
2 questions on the offensive line. You said Will Black, the freshman. What you said, 5-star on him?
Near 5-star. Yeah, he was like, I think he was like maybe like 30. Like I think his like ranking was like 30 something. But yeah, so like high 4-star. I think just short of a 5-star.
Coming from Canada, do y'all normally? How often do y'all dive?
Chase Claypool is from Canada, actually. Yeah, so like we've had a couple guys. I wouldn't say we get a ton of guys, but yeah, there are a few notable ones. Chase Claypool is the other one who comes to mind. Really good player for us at Notre Dame. And then I think there are a lot of mixed opinions about him. His career in the NFL certainly rubbed a lot of people the wrong way.
The last 2 draft picks on the O-line were Joe Alt and Blake Fisher. How many first and second round O-line you see in this group right here?
So I think Jagasaw is to me, he seems like a clear first rounder. I think Wagner seems like a first or second rounder. Shrouth has potential. I think at times last year I thought Shrouth maybe played the best when he was healthy at offensive line. I would say those are guys who are on my radar. I haven't seen enough of Apsher. The staff is high on him to think that maybe he could, but he hasn't really played a ton. But really, I would say those 3 guys I mentioned are the ones that stand out to me as potential first or second round picks. And then, look, someone like Will Black, who has that profile, who the staff's really high on, is a freshman. I think that's that's someone to keep an eye on as well. And then I guess Knapp. Look, Knapp played a lot as a freshman, so I think like someone. I guess like if I'm thinking a little bit more, I guess I would throw Knapp in there just because he certainly took his lumps last year as a true freshman, but I think being able to grab a job like that without like especially for offensive linemen, it's critical for them to get the physical development of like a training program and diet. So he's someone who played pretty well given the circumstances, and I would expect to jump and play. So that's another person I would keep an eye on. I think if you see a jump in Knapp's play, that could be another person who's another potential first or second rounder. Now, like with Alt, I like to compare him to Alt because Alt played in very similar circumstances as a true freshman. Alt was pretty spectacular out the gate. Like I would say Knapp wasn't quite at that level. Mm-hmm. With Alt, it was pretty clear immediately that he was going to be a first round pick. I would say with Knapp, it seems like maybe he could. I'm a little less high on him, but I mean it's hard to like do much better than someone like Joe Alt.
Yeah, Knapp comes from Georgia. I remember watching his highlights back in high school, and he just physical development. And I'm looking at the right tackle, Wagner. Man, he got the measurables, 6'6", 300. He's a little bit taller than Knapp. I think that's what's going to help him a little bit over him for the right tackle spot. But I can't wait to watch. Man, I can't wait to watch the offense. Like I said, it's all going to come down to the upgrade in the passing game, man. So if Carr or Minchie could get it done, man, watch out, bro. We got a looming top 5 offense potentially if everyone can stay healthy.
It's definitely possible. Yeah, it always makes me nervous when there's so much just riding on the quarterback. But I do think like it's not like we have like a really low floor or anything like that. Like the running game should keep us, like operating at like an okay level. And it should buy the quarterback some time to develop. I think like early in the season, you don't have to put all the pressure on them immediately. Well, I say that, but then our two toughest games are at the beginning of the season. So,
All right, let's jump in the defensive side of the ball. We get Chris Ash. What's your thoughts on Chris Ash?
yeah. So, Notre Dame has had a pretty successful run the last, really since our terrible 2016 season, starting with Brian Kelly. We've had a really strong run hiring defensive coordinators. Started with Mike Elko, actually, who's now the Texas A&M coach. So he came in immediately. Like I'm a huge Mike Elko fan just from the turnaround that he had at Notre Dame with our defense. And then Clark Lee after that. So that's funny. That's two SEC head coaches right there. Then we had Marcus Freeman, Al Golden. So we've had a really strong run of defensive coordinators since the 2017 season. And I think some of that, just the hit after hit after hit, that just gives me some inherent optimism. I think Freeman has shown some savvy with his hires. So I think from that standpoint, he's certainly, I've gotten him the benefit of the doubt. And even just aside from that, I think someone like Ash has the profile of coach that someone like Freeman's looking for. So he has head coaching experience. It was at Rutgers, granted that the tenure did not go well there, although he was taking over a program that was in a pretty tough situation at the time. So I don't dismiss that entirely, but I feel like that's an important point to raise, is that it's not like he was walking into a Rutgers team that was coming off of like 10 wins or something like that. He won a national championship at Ohio State as a co-defensive coordinator, and Urban Meyer, if you put any stock into what Urban Meyer thinks, he thinks really highly of him. And then on top of that, he has some NFL experience with the Jaguars. So I think for someone like Freeman, he wants a coach that has a lot of experience across the board. I think the head coaching experience is helpful. It just gives a sounding board for someone like Freeman. And it's someone who's demonstrated that he can be a defensive coordinator at a high level. So I think it's look, I think, could there have been a splashier name out there? Maybe, but when I really thought about it more, it seemed like he checked most of the boxes that we were looking for, and actually fairly similar profile to someone like Al Golden when Al Golden was coming in. Marcus Freeman, defensive-minded head coach, so he's someone who's knows the defense in and out. We have a strong roster, so my expectations are for Ash to put his imprint on this defense, but for largely to maintain the high level of play that it's had.
Yeah, man, you got Marcus Freeman up in that room with you. I wouldn't feel too nervous with the and just all the strength and all the history of all the D coordinators. I wouldn't feel too nervous. And I remember actually pre-show, about position battles. It seems like the defense is kind of all settled almost. Is that what we're leaning?
Yeah, there's really, I think it's like our linebacker group. So we lost Kaiser, who was a leader of the team last year, one of our best players. But the guys that we have returning, you could argue that they even have maybe even more upside. So Drake Bowen, I think he's probably our best linebacker back there, one of the highest graded players on the team. And then aside from that, I think we have a strong unit aside from that. Someone like Osbury, someone like wait, hold on, I'm blanking on the name. We have Osbury, and then Sneed, and then Kingston and Villamou also. So those guys, that's the core group of linebackers. And then we have a highly touted freshman, Madden. I might butcher his name. It's one of those Hawaiian last names that can be kind of tricky to pronounce, but Madden Ferramo, I think, is his name. But not someone who needs to see the field at all, but someone with a lot of upside, and someone who it seems like the staff, the impression I'm getting is he's someone who might force his way into the field at some point. So I think you got Bowen. I think he's at the top in that linebacker group, and then these other guys I mentioned. I think they have a ton of upside, and I think linebacker unit should be a strength of the defense. And then corner is very set. Leonard Moore came in as a true freshman last year. Our star cornerback Benjamin Morrison went down, and shockingly, I think our corner play actually somehow improved after that. Leonard Moore came in, and he was just an absolute lockdown. Christian Gray, I think he's probably our second best corner, but effective. Look, I think the way I view them is someone like Leonard Moore has the potential to be able to lock anyone down. Maybe not Jeremiah. I don't know if anyone can lock down Jeremiah Smith, to be honest, but pretty someone who could lock down the top wide receivers in general in college football. Christian Gray, to me, is someone who is really good against the vast majority of college wide receivers, but then he might get, there might be scenarios where you can kind of pick at him a little bit when you get to like that upper crust. But that's clearly our top two. And then Carson Hobbs, that's probably our number 3 corner behind them. And then we have a number of freshmen and younger guys who could potentially slot in, but seem like they could be ready. And then I would say the one spot that's a little up for grabs is the other safety spot. So we have Adon Schuler. He started alongside Xavier Watts, who was, one of the top safeties in all of college football last year. Schuler had a strong year. You could pick at his some missed tackles or some lapses in coverage, but overall, someone who seems like he has a trajectory to be an impact player. And then that other spot, it's interesting. The question is there going to be someone who just grabs the spot and holds onto it, or is it going to be a bit of a timeshare? But the names to watch are Luke Talek, Jalen Stroman, and then Tay Johnson. And I think it seems like Jalen Stroman, who's a transfer from Virginia Tech, was hurt all of last year, but played well the year before that. It seems like he has the inside track, and I think he gives us like a pretty solid, floor at that position. I would expect our secondary to be, again, among the top in college football. I think our safety room probably takes a little bit of a step back, but maybe our corners might even be back. We might even have better corner play this year. And then in the nickel spot, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Devonta Smith. Played well for Alabama. Not like a star or anything, but someone who's tailor made for that nickel position. So I think you put all that together, and it should be another very strong secondary. And then I guess with that, the last group that I haven't mentioned yet is the defensive line. And so some high profile names that we're losing, particularly in the interior. So it's Riley Mills and Howard Cross. These were two of our star players last year. But the thing is, unfortunately, they were hurt or banged up most of the year. So if they were healthy the entire year, the amount of production that we would have lost would have been pretty massive. But because they were dinged up, and it's like we weren't even really able to like utilize them down the stretch run of the playoffs. Unfortunately, we had to rely on some of our depth. So someone like Heinisch, Rubio. We added a couple guys in the portal on the interior. So we have a transfer from Louisville, Dawson, transfer from USC, Hughes. I would expect Dawson to be a name to keep tabs on there. Very, very productive for Louisville last year. And look, I don't think he's going to be an All-American, but I think he's someone who should have solid play. And I think if you look at the production we had last year, we have guys who were able to get some experience because of these injuries, and then we have these transfers coming in. It's possible that our interior defensive line could actually maybe be a bit more productive than it was last year. I don't expect it to be, it's not going to be like an anchor. It's not going to be like a driving force of the team, but I think it should be serviceable. It is still a bit of a question mark, and I would say that's one area the beat reporters, have kind of, they want to see how it holds up against like some pretty tough competition. And then on the edges, I think this is an area where we have the most upside, because this is an area that we were also dinged up. Jordan Botelho, I'd say probably our best pass rusher. He was hurt all of last year. Unfortunately, he's also hurt again, but he should be back by the middle of this year. It sounds like he might be trending ahead, but I think he's our best pass rusher. I would say our second best pass rusher, Boubacar Traore. He was also hurt last year. Sounds like should be healthy by the time the season starts, and we'll get him back. So I think you have someone like that. You get Botelho back, around the middle of the year. Bryce Young, son of NFL Hall of Famer Bryant Young, apparently. So he was someone who was a true freshman last year, flashed a lot of potential, but he also had some freshman moments. Like I forgot, it was one of the playoff games. He had a couple like stupid penalties, so Freeman pulled him. But someone who at times demonstrated a lot of like a significant pass rush ability, really long. Apparently he had like a growth spurt over the summer, and this is a guy who's already big. So I think he might be like 6'8" or something like that. But I would say like I would expect continued development from him, in the pass rush. So that's one area that really I thought really dinged us against Ohio State, was that we just were not able to get enough pressure on the quarterback. You look at that last play with Jeremiah Smith. If we were able to get home a little bit faster to the quarterback, maybe Jeremiah Smith isn't able to. I don't know. He beat us pretty bad on that. But maybe if the pressure gets back there, maybe it makes it a little bit tougher for them to get that playoff. But yeah, I would say pass rush is the one area I would look as a major potential area of improvement on defense.
Yeah, I was looking at pass rusher, and I was looking at sacks. We lose Riley Mills. He was the lead sack producer, 7.5. But I remember when I had you earlier in the spring that you was bullish on the D line a little bit, and that kind of gave me a little confidence. And I think the secondary, you're right, going to be one of the best in the country. I got Leonard Moore as All American preseason. I'm really high on that cat. That cat can lock up almost anybody in the country, like how you said. One thing I
Yeah.
noticed about this defense, almost everybody can tackle. Like
Yeah.
everybody could tackle, which is a really that's a great skill to have in college football. A lot of teams struggle with tackling. I don't see this going to be an issue with this team. All linebackers could tackle, all the corners could tackle. Even with the transfer of Devontae Smith, he had 33 tackles at Alabama.
Yeah.
Mentioned you mentioned Luke Tallick maybe being a weak spot at the moment, but honestly, I don't really see too much weaknesses on this defense.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I think it's a very high floor for sure. So the question marks I would say are just interior D line, like I think there's enough there to where they should be productive. Um, and then I guess that other safety spot maybe, but then the rest of the secondary is so good, and
Yeah,
someone like Jalen Stroman even, like when he was healthy, he played well. So it's I would be very surprised if we had a weak player starting at safety. It seems like we have enough there to. There's going to be a drop off when you lose someone like Xavier Watts, but I would expect it to still be like a very good safety room. Um,
Christian
and yeah,
Gray.
you make
Christian Gray
yeah,
has
yeah,
he had some moments where he got beat, but he also had some bright moments. I think of the Penn State interception.
yes,
Just
yes. That was
uh,
that was crazy. That was I can't believe that intercept. I still can't believe he threw that interception. I think that might be the worst interception I think I've ever seen, like in anything. If I was a Penn State fan, that would be
yeah,
giving me nightmares. Yeah, and then I think yeah, I mean USC is another great example with Christian Gray. He was, I mean, they frankly they exposed him. I mean, USC strategy that game was, as always, USC has a lot of athletic wide receivers, and we were a little thin at cornerback. They were just running deep routes over and over again, trying to wear out our corners. And it started working. Like Christian Gray started to get kind of worn out, and they beat him a number of times. But then at the end of the game, he got like I can't remember if he got 2 interceptions or one, but he got a pick six. They tried picking on him again, and then he made him pay. And
mhm.
yeah, so someone who definitely, like, he'll take his lumps, but then he tends to respond. And look, another year of development. I think he's, is he going to be able to lock down Jeremiah Smith? Probably not. But most good wide receivers, I think he should be pretty effective against.
It's a ball. I just noticed everybody in the secondary has an interception, at least one interception that's coming back. So it's a ball hawk group. Force a lot of turnovers, top five pass defense in the country, and I think it's going to be an upgrade secondary this year. And top five in total defense shouldn't take too much of a drop off. I have Notre Dame as a preseason top 10 defense, and
Yeah.
so I got something I want you to give our fans. Besides the two All Americans, Jeremiah Love and Leonard Moore, give me your top three next best players on the team overall, regardless of position.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Leonard. I would say Leonard Moore's in there for sure. I would say Drake Bowen, and this next one's a little bit tougher. Because there's not, like, our defensive line, like, they're deep, but I wouldn't say there's like there's not like one stud there. I guess on offensive line, look, I'll go offensive line. I think I would put Jag aside. He's injured for half the year, but I think he's our best lineman when he's healthy. So assuming he comes back and he's full go, I think I think he's looking like a first round offensive lineman. So those would be my three.
Give us your outlook for the season now, since you got a better grip coming from spring now, almost halfway through fall. Well, just second week approaching on fall camp. Give us
Yeah.
your outlook now for the team, and I got Notre Dame as a preseason top five team, national championship contender, and all signs are pointing to a tough schedule early in September, but after
Yeah.
your toughest games are in September, man. If you
Yeah.
if you survive September, it's going to be a breeze, I think.
Yeah, I think so. So, yeah, I would say defense to me, I think we're a lock to be a top 10 defense. I think could be a
Okay.
top 5 defense depending on how things go. Offense, I kind of mentioned my projection there. We could be, if the quarterback's a hit, that could be a top 3 offense. If it's, to me, the worst case would be like a top like 20-ish if, like, we're really not getting much out of the quarterback. We just have such a good running attack. So to me, it feels like, top 10, it seems like a fairly reasonable expectation. So you put that together, and that kind of gets you to around a top 5 team in my opinion, with some upside. So you're exactly right. Our first 2 games are the toughest ones. Miami on the road. I would say, that stadium in Miami has at moments been like a total like nightmare scenario for Notre Dame fans. That's where we lost to Alabama in the 2012 in the national championship. In 2017, that's where a really good Notre Dame team inexplicably got blown out by Miami. And we put some of those ghosts to bed last year against Penn State. So we were able to kind of like exercise some of those demons. But I would say we've tended to have more bad memories there than good. The thing with Miami is, they have Carson Beck, but they have a lot of turnover. Like, they lost like pretty much all their receivers. Their defense last year was brutal. Really, what was keeping them around was just, Ward was just so phenomenal on offense. So I think Miami is a team that, like, I wouldn't be surprised if at the end of the year their offense is rolling and they look really good. But if you're putting all those pieces together, that first game is really tough. And so I think that they have more of that going on than even Notre Dame does. So even if and I think Notre Dame's just better to begin with. So you put that together, you kind of factor in the road. I think we come out on top that game.
Mm-hmm. My thoughts on the Miami game real quick. I don't see one receiver that's going to be able to beat Moore. I mean, there's honestly, I don't even see a receiver that's going to be able to really get by Christian Gray either. And they got 2 good little running backs, Mark Fletcher Jr. and Jordan Lau.
Yeah.
I think the game plan right here is going to be, you stop the run right here. You force Carson Beck to try to beat you through the air, and they're going to have to scheme heavily if they want any success against Notre Dame in this situation. I could see a blowout emerging potentially, man. If the offense of Notre Dame comes out hot, I don't know. I just can't see me moving the ball too much on Notre Dame. Carson Beck showed me a lot of inconsistencies last season with Georgia. I don't know, man. I'm not too high on Miami this year.
I think, I mean, like, Beck has had his moments where at one point, people talked about him like he could be a first-round pick. Obviously, kind of played his way out of that. But the potential is there. But certainly, like, in big games, when you turn up the heat, that's when he's tended to not look as good. And I think Notre Dame's defense has all the makings of a defense that is capable of, making it tough for his receivers to generate separation. So he's got to throw into a tighter window. I mentioned, I think our pass rush should be better. I think that's going to put up some pressure on him. They have good backs, but not great backs. So I think we should be able to keep the running game in check. So and then on top of that, like I said, they're all these guys, like Beck's coming back from like an injury, like a pretty bad injury. So it's not like they've had a ton of time going into the season to really kind of like, get all cylinders firing. So I'm with you on. I mean, look, I respect Miami as an opponent, but I think Notre Dame I think we're clearly better. And I think, unless something catastrophic happens at quarterback for Notre Dame, I don't want to jinx us, but like, unless our quarterback plays like 4 interceptions or something like that, I feel like this is a game that we should win. And then after that, A&M, perennial 8-5, they're always good. Marcel Reed is a bit up and down, but has certainly flashed a lot of potential. Like Texas A&M had some like pretty impressive offensive performances in the SEC last year. But I think Notre Dame is, we have them at home. What's that?
You get a bye week?
Yeah, we get a bye week. We have them at home. We last year we were playing at College Station, which was great environment. But we have them at home this time. And I think our team is just across the board, our team is also just better. So I think we're just better. We have them at home. So those are our 2 toughest games. And we could definitely, if we don't show up, we could definitely drop one of them. But right now I have us winning those 2. And then after that, the schedule gets a lot more manageable. I think like me and my co-hosts, we did like some math on using like betting probabilities. And if we win those 2 games, the math says that our odds of winning out after that, it's like 70 something %. So I think if we win those 2 games, then you can kind of, I mean, look, I should learn lessons from last year because of the NIU loss, but I would say if we win those 2 games, I would say that there's a pretty good chance that Notre Dame should be, I would bet that they're going to be like a top seed for the college football playoff. So I'm not going to predict us to be undefeated. I'll say that we drop a stupid game somewhere, but I would expect Notre Dame to be back in the college football playoff.
Pitt on the road scares me, dog. In November, that's now one of my buddies is an Arkansas guy, and he told me to mention to you that going to Fayetteville might be a little tough place to
Yeah.
play. That's 11 a.m. kick. We'll see. You know, you gotta get the crowd out of that one. You don't want that one to get a little sneaky on you. And
Yeah.
A&M's going to have 2 games on tape, while y'all only have 1 game on tape. I think that's going to be an advantage. They got 2 tune-ups. They won't be battle tested like how y'all going into Miami. A&M's going to be probably the trickiest game, I would say, out of the toughest. I think A&M's the toughest game on the whole schedule. But I do point to Pitt at the end of the season. Watch out for Pitt, man. Pitt has some talent.
Pitt's tough. They always, but I'm with you. So I would say it's like, Miami and A&M, those are clearly our 2 toughest games. And then you can debate about which one you think is tougher. I have Arkansas. It's interesting you mentioned Arkansas. I have Arkansas as our 3rd most challenging game. Part of that's exactly for the reasons you said. It's on the road, should be a tough environment. Look, Arkansas is they're not a great team, but they're good. If you don't show up, they can definitely beat you. And look, I don't, maybe I should say USC after that, but I feel like USC has just been getting on Notre Dame's fans' nerves this past offseason, just with them talking about canceling the series. And look, I think we've also just had their number so many years in a row. We have them at home this time, so I think we got that. And then Pitt has perennially been a thorn in Notre Dame's side. I feel like they're always Narduzzi absolutely hates Notre Dame. He seems like he always has his team kind of playing better than you'd expect. It seems like they punch above their weight. And it's at Pitt. So I don't know. It's just a place that we've had some tough games there in the past. If I had to pick a trap game, that would be the trap game that I would pick.
I got Notre Dame going 12-0, and I think that Pitt game is the one that scares me the most, even more than A&M, dog. The thing about USC is that listen to who USC plays before they play y'all. All right, this is the 3-week stretch. They got Illinois on the road, Michigan, and then y'all.
They got travel.
They got Michigan. They got Michigan the week before y'all, bro. Michigan's a tough defense. That's a tough little scratch going, and then going into Notre Dame.
Yeah, it's a lot of travel. So they got to fly out to Illinois, which is not that far from Notre Dame. Then they go back home for Michigan. And Michigan's look, they're like you said, the hard-nosed team. A complaint with USC over the last however many years has been they just don't have those tough interior guys. Like they did when they had Pete Carroll, they had those guys, and then they also had the skill position guys. But I would say in recent years they've seemed a little softer on the interior. Although actually their offensive line the last couple of years has been a little bit better. But certainly Michigan is a team that's gonna they're gonna have some bruises after that game for sure. And then they got to fly all the way back out to South Bend. I think it's and anytime they play Notre Dame in South Bend, I'm always praying that it's unseasonably cold. And I can say as someone who lives out in Southern California, the weather out here makes you very soft. So, if it's 48 degrees or something like that, it feels very cold for someone who's used to Southern California weather.
Oh, bro, dude, I went to a game not even that far north, bro. It was the Music City Bowl in Nashville. That was the coldest game I've ever been to, man.
Yeah. Yeah, you get good weather, you get used to it. I mean, I've lived in the South, I've lived in the Midwest, and when you're in the Midwest, you get used to it. But when you're used to warm weather all the time, it drops below 50, and it's just it feels
how's touchdown Jesus, man? That stadium. Does it get loud, or how's the fans? Y'all tailgate up there, and how is it?
It's beautiful. So the stadium's on campus. You have a view of depending on where you're sitting in the stadium, you could have a view of touchdown Jesus. It used to be like before they added some additions to the stadium, you could always see it. Now it kind of depends where you're sitting. But yeah, beautiful campus. It's it really does kind of feel like almost like a museum. Like, I don't know. It's like if you were to describe a college campus as like a museum of college football, like Notre Dame is kind of that. The buildings around it are beautiful. They have these grassy quads. The tailgating it's all on campus. It's like, yeah, just like they have these big lots around the stadium. So all the students are there. You'll find some people who are just walking around campus, doing tailgating as well. So yeah, I would say it's not like an Ole Miss like tailgate party scene, but like there's a big tailgating tradition for sure. It's like the lots are full. people are going. I mean, it depends. Like if you're around like college kids, they're going to be, they're going to be tailgating pretty hard. Like even, even people who aren't college kids, like, so it just kind of depends. Whatever flavor you want, I would say they have that there. They have like the people who are tailgating really hard. Then they have kind of more the, like if you're more of like a wine and cheese type person, you could find that there too. And then the stadium itself, I would say a complaint with Notre Dame fans at times has been that we were too polite sometimes. And I would say like we tend to be very welcoming to opposing fan bases. And sometimes people complain that translates to the sound in the stadium. So if it's like a sleepy game where we're like playing, I don't know, like, I mean, like say we're playing like a school like Tulane or something like that, right? Like the stadium might not be very loud. Whereas like there are other stadiums that you could go to, like for other college football teams, and it would be really loud. But when there's a big game, like it can get really loud. So when the moment is like big, the crowd does get fired up. I was at the playoff game against Indiana this past year, and yeah, it was like one of the loudest stadiums I've ever been in, like anywhere.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, is it Death Valley in Baton Rouge? I don't know. I don't think it gets that loud, but I think it's like what you would expect from like a, I'd say like when the crowd is fired up, it's probably like a top 10, top 15 stadium. But you do have like the older fan base sometimes if it's like kind of a sleepier game who if you stand up and yell, they'll tell you to like sit down. So that does happen.
The grumpy old, hey, sit down. No.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Which, hey, maybe that'll be me one day, but I'm not there right now. I'm definitely someone who is yelling more.
It's iconic. I think of Rudy. I think of Touchdown Jesus. It's iconic. Notre Dame, one of the best brands in all of football. Iconic. I definitely want to visit it eventually one day. I don't want to go in when it's cold, late November or anything like that. I might have to go maybe September game or something. But
yeah, I would say late September, early October. That's probably the best time. It's like you kind of get that perfect fall weather. The leaves are starting to change a little bit. Yeah. And I mean, it's just a beautiful campus. Like it's like when they planned the campus, it seems like they had like a big blueprint for how everything was going to grow. And it's, it just has this like beautiful, like limestone marble, like it just kind of feels like a classic, like old college campus, and everything with like the football stadium and everything kind of like naturally kind of like, flows through it. So yeah, I would say late September, early October. To me, like when I look at like my favorite memories, it's just like it doesn't get much better than just like a crisp, fall day, like I said, late September, early October, walking around Notre Dame's campus, tailgating, and then watching us beat like USC or someone like that.
Yeah, can't beat that, man. Last thing we're gonna do before I let you go is I seen you was fired up about Barstool Gruden.
Oh yeah, dude, that was awesome. One of my friends sent me that. It was like 8 minutes, and I was like, there's no way I'm watching this. And I started watching. I was like, okay, yeah, I might even watch it twice now.
Dude, he does a great job with those boxes and care packages.
Yeah.
Freaking Notre Dame helmet, bro. Where would you rank that chrome helmet, bro?
I love like, so it was like 10, I don't know, maybe like 12 years ago or something. They changed it to like that shiny gold, and since they did that, I mean, I feel like it's got to be like a top 3 helmet, right? There are other iconic helmets up there. And a lot of people thought that like the old helmet that was like, it was gold, but not as shiny. That was like the more iconic, like classic. But when you just see those shiny gold, like domes, like running out of the tunnel, I mean, it's hard to beat that. So for me, it's number 1. If I'm trying to like be like an objective college football fan, I'd be like, okay, I think it's probably like top 3. And then you could kind of debate, but there's nothing, I would say there are a few things that fire me up more than, just seeing those golden helmets like run out onto the field.
Those chrome helmets, man, they definitely up there. I agree.
Yeah.
Wade, man, we appreciate you coming to talk from Notre Dame. Our fans and our people have been, dying to hear it, and we appreciate you.
Yeah, dude, thanks for having me on. It was great to do this again, and we'll have to have you on our show sometime. Got to coordinate with my co-host. Yeah, at some point you'll have to meet my co-host. He's very insightful about college football. So, but yeah, fun, and yeah, dude, just excited for this season to finally kick off.
It's almost here, man. Well, we're gonna end the stream, and we'll see y'all in the next show.
All right. Yeah. Thanks again for having me on.